Hey guys, today we're going to talk about grudges. Back in 1992, 3 days before my 9th birthday, my dad was murdered by his best friend and next door neighbor. Dad was only 30 years old when he died from a single stab wound to the chest. Being I was so young, I didn't know how to process this, and it contributed to my anger problems as I got older. 16 years later, he was paroled, and I just happened to run into him on the street. Never in a million years did I think I would ever come face to face with the man who caused so much pain in my life and in the life of my family. Seeing him flip the master switch to every emotion I thought I buried as a child, and I literally shook from the surge. I could tell from the way he looked at me that he knew who I was. I knew that if I were to get angry with him, I would not get any answers, so I took the high road. What I always wanted to know was, what did my dad say as he was lying on the ground, bleeding out? But according to him, my dad said nothing. After that, he began making excuses to why he did what he did. And that's when the anger inside me shot to the surface. But that changed the moment I looked into his eyes. I could tell they were full of pain, and it really affected me. But 10 minutes after I departed, I realized he never apologized, only made excuses for what he had done. From that moment forward, I hated that man. For him to try to excuse his behavior to his victim's son really angered me. Fast forward 9 years, and I found myself sitting in a prison cell for a violent crime just like he was. The stress of prison was really taking its toll on me, and I noticed gray hairs starting to sprout in my head. That was when I wondered if Dad got gray hairs at age 35, but then I realized that Dad only lived to age 30. That put me in a mental funk for the next couple of days until I opened my Bible, and this is the verse the Holy Spirit used to pick me apart. Ephesians 4:32 says, "And be ye kind one to another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, even as God for Christ's sake hath forgiven you." This was a turning point in my life. How could I claim to be a follower of Christ with me walking around with anger in my heart towards this man? Matthew 7:5 says, "Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye." I was being a hypocrite, and God used his word to reveal it to me. He did not beat me down, but corrected me with love. While I was in prison, I was asked to speak at a service at the chapel. I shared with the men the same story I just shared with you guys. When I finished speaking, I asked all the men to bow their heads, and we said a prayer for my dad's killer. I took my seat, and I saw men wiping tears from their eyes. Some of them I know for certain were killers themselves. That's the thing about the love of God. It can penetrate the hardest of hearts. Since I've been home, I've made it a point to pray for my dad's killer. If the Lord wills, I hope to run into him again face to face because I want him to know that I forgive him. Whether he chooses to accept that or not is on him. But one thing I do know is that the love of God is transferable, and it can get inside of his heart, and maybe perhaps he will reach out to God and ask for forgiveness if he hasn't done it already. I don't want to make this seem like it's simple because it can be hard in the flesh. But when human effort reaches its limit, that's when faith takes over, and we have to believe that God will do what his word says he will do. Don't get me wrong, I still miss my dad, and it still hurts at times, but I know I will see my dad again. Death, you tried and failed, all because of Jesus.